Water is the one thing every community shares, and the one thing we can't replace. This week's stories don't look alike on the surface, but they all ask the same question. Who gets water? Who pays for it? And what happens when the math stops working?
Welcome to Western Water Weekly. This is your weekly roundup of water news reported by western-water.com. Each Sunday, we break down what happened across the Colorado River Basin states. Our goal is to make complex water issues clear and relevant for laypeople. Let's get started.
We begin in southern Arizona, where massive data center plans are accelerating. Supporters cite jobs and tax revenue. Critics and state officials are focused on electricity costs, water planning, and oversight. Two major fronts stand out: Project Blue, east of Tucson in Pima County, and two Marana projects, Luckett Road North and Luckett Road South, spread across roughly 600 acres. On January 5, 2026, Arizona Attorney General Chris Mays challenged the Arizona Corporation Commission's December 10, 2025 approval of a private electric service agreement between Tucson Electric Power and Humphreys Peak Power LLC, an affiliate of Beale Infrastructure Group. The Attorney General argues the Commission unlawfully delegated rate-making authority by approving an agreement that could allow electricity rate changes without clear public oversight, and raises concerns about the process and the public record. Tucson Electric Power estimates it will supply about 286 megawatts to Project Blue by 2028, a level compared in filings to the electricity needed to cool roughly 57,000 homes. The dispute also highlights fears that infrastructure built sooner than planned could shift costs toward existing ratepayers. The company and developer dispute those claims and say protections are in place. On January 6, 2026, the Marana Town Council unanimously approved rezoning for the Luckett Road projects. One property is owned by the Kai Family Trust and the other by the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. Beale Infrastructure is the developer. Planning documents describe both sites as largely within FEMA-designated floodplains, with shallow sheet flooding in 100-year events. Water supply is central. The Luckett Road South property currently receives about 800 to 1,100 acre-feet per year of irrigation water from the Cortaro Marana Irrigation District, and future potable service would come from Marana's system under the town's 2024 Data Center Ordinance. Supporters, including construction unions, cited projections of up to 4,200 construction jobs, $5 billion in investment, and $145 million in town tax revenue. Opponents raised concerns about power rates, water availability, generator emissions, and long-term impacts. Some residents discussed a referendum effort. New demand is one pressure point, but the bigger question is what happens when long-standing water rules expire and the replacement isn't agreed on. On January 9th, the Bureau of Reclamation released a draft environmental impact statement on how to operate the Colorado River's major reservoirs after current guidelines expire at the end of 2026. The system serves more than 40 million people, supports agriculture on about 5.5 million acres, generates hydropower, sustains ecosystems, and provides water to 30 tribal nations in the United States. Reclamation evaluated 5 alternatives, from a baseline no-action approach to options emphasizing coordination, flexibility, and supply-driven releases. The draft is scheduled for Federal Register publication on January 16, 2026, followed by a 45-day comment period ending March 2, 2026, with a final decision expected before October 1, 2026. The draft isn't a decision yet. Metropolitan Water District of Southern California warned the draft reflects unresolved divisions among basin states and could trigger prolonged litigation. General Manager Shivaji Deshmukh emphasized that a basin-led agreement would reduce uncertainty and said collectively, "We can do better." Then, Save the Colorado strongly backed the lower basin, arguing federal alternatives misinterpret the 1922 Compact and related Law of the River agreements. The group said litigation should follow if the federal action alternatives are adopted. the 7 Colorado River Basin states face a deadline of February 14, 2026, to agree to an operating plan before the federal government makes the decision for them. From the Colorado River, we shift to another basin where a water level becomes a public warning sign. The Great Salt Lake ended the 2025 water year on September 30, 2025, at 4,191.1 feet in the South Arm, the third lowest year-end level since records began in 1903. A report released January 7th described stabilization but placed the lake in the serious adverse effects range. Between 2021 and 2025, nearly 400,000 acre-feet were dedicated and delivered to the lake through leasing, conservation, reservoir releases, wetland work, and invasive Phragmites removal. But projections say roughly 800,000 acre-feet per year of additional sustained inflow would be needed to reach a healthier elevation near 4,198 feet by 2055, with warming expected to increase evaporation. Low levels still expose lakebed and dust risks. In Farmington Bay, more than 120 square miles have been exposed, including major dust hotspots, and Utah expanded dust monitoring. Updated basin water budget estimates also put municipal and industrial depletion at about 26% of human-caused depletion, higher than earlier estimates. If the Salt Lake story is measured in feet, Arizona's groundwater story is measured in falling wells and in land that sinks. On January 9th, Arizona designated the Rio Grande Plain Groundwater Basin as a new active management area, the state's 8th AMA and the 3rd created since 2022. The state found pumping rising sharply, limited recharge, and evidence of serious declines. One monitored well down more than 240 feet over about 40 years, plus widespread land subsidence that reduces future aquifer storage. The process included public meetings and a formal hearing with more than 400 comments. Non-exempt wells will have to measure and report pumping, with reporting beginning in 2027 for water pumped in 2026. Small domestic wells pumping 35 gallons per minute or less remain exempt. The designation also limits agricultural expansion unless prior investment standards are met. The newly designated AMA affects the Saudi-owned agricultural company Fondomonte, which owns more than 22,000 acres in La Paz County. Fondomonte will retain irrigation grandfathered rights for land irrigated within the past 5 years, but will be required to meet conservation standards and report annual groundwater use, according to state officials. Water stress doesn't end when a crisis passes. After wildfire, water risks can surge fast.
The U.S. Forest Service announced plans for a nationwide environmental assessment to help speed recovery actions after severe wildfires, with public comments open through January 26, 2026. The agency says larger, longer fires create post-fire hazards, erosion, flooding, damaged roads, falling trees, and threats to drinking water. A nationwide assessment would analyze common recovery actions once, helping local managers move faster while still requiring site-specific review. The agency expects the assessment in April 2026. And when water obligations are set by treaty, the challenge becomes whether the numbers still work under modern drought.
A January 2026 study by Vianney Rueda and Andrew D. Gronewald examined the Rio Grande portion of the 1944 water treaty between the U.S. and Mexico. Mexico's obligation averages about 350,000 acre-feet per year from 6 tributaries over 5-year cycles. The study reconstructed tributary flows from 1953 to 2021 and modeled wet spells, long droughts, heavy storm years, and imbalanced tributary contributions. The analysis found compliance without severe local impacts was only possible during prolonged above-average stream flow. Average conditions weren't enough. 2 tributaries, The Rio Conchos and Rio Salado are central to meeting deliveries, and prolonged low flows quickly create deficits. The authors also modeled flexible delivery reductions during drought, finding it could reduce long-term deficits and distribute impacts more evenly. When resources tighten, financing fights get sharper, especially when safe drinking water is on the line. Remember that veto that was all over the news at the close of 2025? On January 8, 2026, the U.S. House failed to override Donald Trump's veto of legislation tied to financing terms for the Arkansas Valley Conduit, a southeastern Colorado drinking water project. The veto was issued December 29, 2025. The conduit is a planned 130-mile pipeline to deliver treated water from Pueblo Reservoir to 39 towns and rural systems, serving about 50,000 people. More than $249 million has been spent, with total costs estimated around $1.3 billion. The vetoed bill would have adjusted repayment terms. Construction continues, but the existing financing structure remains. All of this plays out against the background condition that keeps reappearing on the map: drought that improves in one place, worsens in another, and rarely stays still.
The January 15th U.S. Drought Monitor shows uneven relief nationwide. Precipitation improved conditions across parts of the plains, Midwest, and Southeast, but much of it fell as rain rather than snow due to unusual warmth. In the West and the Colorado River Basin, conditions were mixed. Severe drought improved in western Colorado, and parts of eastern Arizona, western New Mexico, eastern Nevada, and western Utah saw improvements. But extreme and exceptional drought expanded in central Colorado, worsened in northern Nevada, and abnormally dry to moderate drought expanded across much of eastern Wyoming. With winter snowpack critical, warm conditions can limit long-term benefits even when short-term maps improve. The basin outlook remains variable.
That wraps up this week's Western Water Weekly. All of the stories we covered are reported in full at western-water.com. Be sure to check back next Sunday for our next roundup. Thanks for watching.